Good afternoon. I'm back painting fall leaves. So I painted this live and I didn't save, and I wanted to make sure it ended up on YouTube. I had a request to do a tutorial on leaves, so I tried to do a few different shapes and put them in a vase. So I'm going to work on that. So a nice long pointy leaf, a eucalyptus leaf, something a little bit smaller. I'm trying to use a few different brushes. So I'm going to start with my long round 8 from Princeton for the nice long pointy ones, my Princeton Neptune, again size 8 for the eucalyptus leaves, and then a petals brush for the last type of leaf. For colors, I think I'm gonna work with a similar color palette. So all of these were Aloha watercolors, handmade paints. So 3 different colors, and then I'll try and do the vase at the end as well. So the first one, I'm going to use this brown rice color from Aloha watercolors. It's not gonna be exactly the same because I don't use a sketch. It'll be slightly different based on placement, but I'll try and keep it in a similar vein to that. So there are multiple different ways that you can paint leaves. This is just what feels comfortable for me. I start with the outside part and then go into the stem. So I drag the brush to me. So the first thing I'm doing here is making the edge of the leaf with very light pressure, and then I push down onto the paper, spread out those bristles, and that was a 2-stroke leaf right there. So depending on your paper, you can get some really nice color bleeds. You can do 2 colors, make the part that's close to the stem a different brown maybe, something like that. And then based on that quality of paper, you have more time to fiddle around with that. So I'll do another one of these, this time coming out, pulling out, and then coming to a point. And then adding some additional color at the bottom. This time, I'm going to give it some curve towards the middle. So it's going in a different direction here. Again, adding some darker brown at the base to tie that into the branch. It took me a very long time to feel comfortable painting leaves. So I understand why this is tricky for beginners. It's still tricky to me. Thank you, Cookie. I try not to make it too symmetrical. And we're all kind of drawn to do that. So I want to make some sides look a little bit different than the other. It's right next to each other. Maybe add in some little ones. You have time to go back. If it's looking too sparse, Today was a really long day for me. I had professional development at work, so lots of presentations and thinking of ways to incorporate what I was learning into the classroom. Lots on my mind there. And then I am leading a session, or 2 sessions tomorrow, where I'll be painting something that looks like this with staff members. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on that eucalyptus now. So that one is going to be made with my Princeton round. I love this one for making eucalyptus leaves. I like those greens to be a little bit more blue. So for this one, sometimes it is just a little plop of the brush, and that's it. And I don't go back and adjust that shape very often. I do want to get some bleeds with this other leaf. So trying to show that. Should get a little bit bigger as we get lower. Really using the belly of that brush. Now I want to connect them. You can use any of your pointy brushes to make a stem. So I'm going to use the same brown that I used for this branch. It's a little bit more delicate than the first time I did it. Thank you, Cookie. I hope the watercolor is relaxing as well. Okay, so these are very close to each other, so I'm going to try and have one that is falling a little bit. You can see I did something similar here, giving it a little bit of room, but I curved it up. I'm going to have this one kind of come down a little bit, I think. And I wanted to use a different brush here. This is the petals brush. It's a triangle brush. It's really the only brush that's not a round brush that I like using. And then I wanted something a bit more red. This one is tricky to explain my process. This is one of the newer brushes for me to be using. So I did say I wanted it to do some curving. So I'm going to start with, again, there's so many ways you can do this. You can have a little guide, a little stem, or you can start just with the leaves and do the connections later, like I did with the eucalyptus. I think this time I'll add my stem first because I didn't do that with the other two. And I went a little thick here. I did a little bit too much pressure, so maybe this is going to become a leaf. And I can add one here. It really is sort of a leaf that falls from this brush very easily. So, like the other ones, a light to heavy pressure. The angle that you are using It's going to give you some really nice shapes. I want this one to be much more full. So I'm going to have a few different branches here. Cookie, do you also paint with watercolors? It comes with practice. This is my 3rd year of painting with watercolors. My 2nd year painting live. So I went live on Instagram in May of last year, almost every day of the summer. Okay. That's pretty good for that side. Right now I'm deciding if I want to add a little branch of eucalyptus right in between there. So I might go back and do that. I do want to show you how I made my vase. So I'm going to go for a different color, even though I really like that one, just to make this one a little bit different. Something similar. I'm back with my Princeton Neptune. I'm going to almost sketch out the sides of my vase, give it a little shape, and then with water, fill in some of that vase, not all of it. I want to leave some white space for highlights. And then I want to dip back into that color and let that bleed a bit more. Thank you. This particular pink is what drew me to this palette from Aloha watercolors. I just needed it. It's really pretty. If you have a potter's pink, it's very similar to that. It's not a color that I had, and I thought it was just too good to pass up. Okay, so that is my little vase. I think I will add that little baby branch of eucalyptus right here. That really fills it up. And then back to that brown. Right? Little baby branch. It's a lot more water on my brush, so the bleeds are a little bit more intense. If you didn't want so much color, you can use a clean wet brush and mop some of that up. That's one way to erase little mistakes like that. Okay. One other thing that I did with my first version of this was I added gold. So you can see some of that gold right there. I didn't add any gold yet, but what do you think? Should I add a little bit? Also running out of sunlight. So maybe that'll be the last thing I do here. Yes, Cookie says yes, so let me use my petals brush for that. I have a few different golds on my palette, so I think this is the one I used. This gold is from Redbud pigment. I didn't go and outline everything. I just put it in a few places. And if it's looking very saturated, you can always take some water and thin that out. I do love adding gold to watercolors. Very fun. This palette, the palette itself, I got from Aloha watercolors, and all of her colors are on this side. So these are all Aloha watercolor paints. These are from Redbud pigment, and then I have a few from Mrs. Hand Painted. So a whole bunch. I just like that I can carry most of my half pans in one place. And then I have this other palette that I also frequently use, and it's got my quarter pans of bolder colors. I do love earthy colors. I tend to go for a fall palette all the time. So I like to just see everything at a glance. Just easier for my brain to separate it by maker because I'm familiar with what colors most of theirs are called, or at least what set they were from. So this was the Greek goddess set from Redbud. I added a few little bits of this almost purple metallic. I really hope this video saves so that I can post this to YouTube. All my past TikTok lives are there. Okay. Yes, Cookie. So I don't have tutorials up there yet. It is a future goal of mine, but all this style of painting where I'm kind of paint and chat, they're all up. I've got over 100. So you can scroll through. I have most of them listed by date and then a little descriptor of what I'm painting. So mostly it just says loose florals or fall florals or something because I just absolutely love painting flowers. It's my form of therapy. Okay, so that is going to be it for today. I will be back tomorrow. Thank you, Cookie. I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm actually off from work for the rest of the week, so I'll be here all week long. Possibly one day painting with Iduma live on Instagram. We'll see if our schedules will work. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leaves are not something that I focus on. Mombati, the palette, most of this is from Aloha watercolors. The two metallics that I used here, they are from Redbud. So I'll put that in the description when I post this video to YouTube. I'll tell you what colors I used. Thanks, Cookie, for joining, and see you again soon. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.